Yeah. Lil Brunson back at you with the back at you, and I am the best reporting on the Eagles. Listen, you got to think about it like this. Darren Sproles and Deshaun Jackson are two guys who really could benefit from a really good season. Not because Deshaun Jackson doesn't have rings, not because Darren Sproles missed the last Super Bowl run that we had, because a good season for either one of these guys basically solidifies their spot in the Hall of Fame. Now, we know Darren Sproles is number 6 in all-purpose yards. A good season helping him pass number 6 and get to number 5 will solidify his spot with the greats. He's already one of the greats. He's already a legend, as is Deshaun Jackson. Now, before we get into the meat and potatoes about this Darren Sproles situation, we got to understand that Darren Sproles deciding to come back puts one of these running backs on the bubble. Who's out? Is it Boston Scott? He seems like a likely candidate, but I think with the additions of Miles Sanders and Jordan Howard, I think Wendell Smallwood could be on the bubble. A lot of things could happen. Now, the one thing I don't like about Darren Sproles and Doug Peterson is Doug Peterson has this obvious thing for Darren Sproles, and sometimes he puts him in situations to where his undersized old frame could be wrecked. You know what I mean? Like, Darren Sproles don't fumble, but Darren Sproles ain't no power back. And I feel like Doug Peterson and Deuce Staley and those guys, they feel like Darren Sproles could do it all. I feel like that at times too, but sometimes you got to call a spade, and you got to go with your guy. Now, Darren Sproles is going to add leadership to that locker room. Darren Sproles is going to be the voice of reason, especially when you got a new number 1 back coming in. A lot of the young guys are familiar with Darren Sproles, like Corey Clement and all those guys, man. So Darren Sproles is a very valuable asset. Darren Sproles in the running back room is, how can I compare this to another position? Darren Sproles is the Malcolm Jenkins of the running back room. You know what I'm saying? He's the wily vet. He's the guy who time and time again shows you how to prepare. He's the guy who always stays on top of preparation. He's the guy who can always be called on. He doesn't require a big role. Darren Sproles is a leader, and we love him in Philadelphia. You know what I'm saying? I believe we're going to retire Darren Sproles' jersey. I believe this is Darren Sproles' last year. But Darren Sproles coming to the roster at his age, I think Darren Sproles sees an opportunity and he sees a window to try to capture another ring. And that's kudos to Darren Sproles. Kudos to the Philadelphia Eagles for bringing him back. We know how good he looks. We know how dangerous he could be on punt returns. We know he's a guy that a lot of people don't want to even punt the ball to. So, you know, Darren Sproles is going to show us a lot of leadership this year, I believe. I believe Darren Sproles is going to do what it do. I mean, Darren Sproles could be that third down back. You never know. I mean, injuries plagued them last season, and not so much the season before, or if I'm getting that backwards, but Jordan Howard isn't looked at as a third down back. I think that Miles Sanders is really going to benefit the most from having a Darren Sproles on the roster. We want Miles Sanders to be that hybrid, that guy that Miles Sanders can be the next Shady McCoy for us, in my opinion. He could run the ball, he could catch the ball, but we want these guys to learn everything they can from Darren Sproles. This is the point of bringing Darren Sproles back right now, to teach these guys. Look at the guys you got. You got Clement still on his rookie deal. Miles Sanders, rookie. Jordan Howard on the last year of his rookie deal. You got some young guys who are in different phases of a rookie deal, different phases of their career, who can learn everything they can learn from Darren Sproles. If you stick to what you're good at and don't try to change your game, you too could hold one of these records. Look, if nobody's going to tell you, I'm going to tell you. It's hot out here. Lil Brunson back at you with the back at you, and I'm the best reporting on the Eagles. Listen, man, so I made some comments about, our linebacking situation earlier in the week, and I want to explain to you guys the roles of said linebackers in these positions and why I think that we could have somewhat of a liability or somewhat of a really proven time at the linebacker course. So let's get into it. So generally, this is what you're going to see. You're going to see a defensive front right here, and then you're going to see your 3 linebackers. Now, our guy right here, Zach Brown, will be anchoring this middle linebacker role. Now, you're going to have Nigel Branham right here, and you're going to have Rouge Hill right here, or vice versa, depending on how the coaches see this scheme should fit, on which side they play better on. But Zach Brown was brought in to play the middle. Now, the roles of these outside linebackers is basically to contain the edge. First and foremost, they want to contain the edge when it's a running play, or they want to, drop back in coverage and have great hands. Now, let's talk about Nigel Branham, who will most likely be on this side. Nigel Branham has left a few balls out there on the field and pass protection. He, you know, could have had some interceptions that he let slip through his hands, but it's a really good thing about that. He was there to break the play up. That's big time. Now, he's not a wide receiver, so we can't really expect him to really come out there and, you know, catch everything that's thrown near him. You know, the ball isn't even meant for him 9 times out of 10 because he's on defense. 10 times out of 10, it ain't meant for him. But, yeah, he really comes, his value really shows when it's time to seal off edges. He's a real hard hitter. Nigel Branham, he helps these guys out a lot. Now, these guys' job is simple. They want to get to the quarterback or they want to stop the run. You know, they feel off the line. They feel that when linemen are pushing towards them, they feel it's a run play. So they got to get their hands active and try to grab a hold of a jersey or something of the guy with the ball. Now, when offensive linemen jump back in a passive stance, waiting for the contact from the defensive line, then they know it's a pass play. So for a lot of you guys who don't know how defensive linemen know, they know based off what the offensive linemen do. So when offensive linemen take that step back towards the quarterback and start to form that pocket, they already know what it is. When the offensive linemen come right at them, they know what it is. Pass play or screenplay or something like that. Now, these two guys' jobs are to seal the edge. Now, Rouge Hill proved that he's a great outside linebacker. His athleticism came up really in one of the Dallas games where he almost intercepted Dak Prescott. The ball went through his hands. I think he had a cast on his hand at the time. Yeah, he could play. He could play out there on the outside. He also could stop the run as well as Nigel Branham. But the middle linebacker's identity is quite different. Now he has 2 jobs. One job is to be that 5th guy that's going to help stop that run, and the other job is to drop back in pass coverage in this area right here, the middle of the field. You know what I mean? So if a short pass comes right in front of him right here, if he's dropping back, then he's going to be that guy that makes that tackle. Now, these guys are really, these linebackers, if we even decide to play 3 linebackers, these linebackers are really important, because when these guys get the pressure from the offensive line, when the offensive line bull rushes these guys, 9 times out of 10, it takes these guys out. Now, Fletcher Cox has made amazing plays where he still could maneuver that and still make something happen in the backfield. It's very rare, though, for defensive tackles to be able to do something like that, but great ones and elite ones can. Now, these guys come into play, these linebackers, because they often have the opportunity to tackle somebody in the open field for a one-on-one tackle. Now, that's very important. Now, listen, I encourage you guys to drink a lot of water today. It's supposed to be 115 degrees where I'm at. As you can see, 3 minutes of recording, I'm already out here sweating bullets. Drink some water, man. And that's what I feel about the linebacking core. Lil Brunson back at you with the back at you. Sweat the day, do what you got to do. And I'm the best reporting on the Eagles.